What if the secret to ultimate freedom and universal knowledge wasn't about suppressing your human emotions, but actually leaning into them so completely that they transform the very world around you?
Right, like what if the path to the infinite wasn't paved with cold, hard logic, but with the fire of an all-consuming passion?
Exactly. Today we are exploring a philosophy where intense, passionate love is the ultimate shortcut to the infinite. Welcome to your deep dive.
It's a fascinating topic and quite a shift from how we usually think about spiritual discipline.
It really is. But before we plunge into this incredible material, I want to take a quick moment to speak directly to you, the listener.
Mm.
If you are watching this on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel, please take a second to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share this deep dive with fellow learners.
It really makes a huge difference.
It does. Subscribing humbly helps our channel continue to bring these profound, comprehensive book summaries to life, translating dense texts into insights you can actually use. We're on a mission to make the world's greatest wisdom accessible to you, and your support means everything.
Absolutely. And the mission for our analysis today is quite a profound one.
Yeah, lay it out for us.
We are looking at a comprehensive summary of the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, specifically Volume 3, and we're going to be focusing almost entirely on the deeply transformative text of Bhakti Yoga.
Okay, for those who might not be familiar, we need to set the stage a bit.
Right, context is everything.
Swami Vivekananda was a 19th century Indian monk. He was a philosopher and a chief disciple of the mystic Ramakrishna.
But his historical significance really exploded on the global stage when he brought the spiritual philosophy of India to the West.
This was at the 1893 World's Parliament of Religions, right?
Exactly. In Chicago. And while we will touch upon his broader teachings to give you the necessary context, the primary focus of this deep dive is to unpack the mechanics, the psychology, and the ultimate destination of Bhakti Yoga.
Which translates to the yoga of love and devotion.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this by setting the scene, because the context here is absolutely vital for understanding why his message hit with such a massive impact.
Oh, for sure.
It is September 1893. You are in Chicago. Now, to understand this moment, you have to understand what Chicago was at the end of the 19th century.
It was the Western civic queen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A bustling modern metropolis sitting right on the shores of Lake Michigan. It is teeming with life, eager interests, industrial revolution energy.
The roar of trains, the literal smoke of progress.
Yeah, it represents the Occidental mind at that exact moment in history. Young, tumultuous, overflowing with self-assurance, immensely proud of its technological achievements, but deeply, deeply inquisitive.
And into this buzzing, industrial, highly structured arena steps Swami Vivekananda, representing something entirely different.
Like polar opposite energy.
Completely. The philosophy he represents is likened to a calm ocean of long ages of spiritual development, a world that dates itself from the ancient Vedas.
So you have this incredible collision. The young, roaring river of modern Western thought meeting the ancient, deep, quiet ocean of Eastern spirituality.
And Vivekananda is the point of confluence.
What's fascinating here is exactly what he brought to that point of confluence.
Right, because when he took the stage at the Parliament and began his address, he didn't just offer another competing dogma.
You have to imagine a room full of theologians, scholars, and religious leaders.
Many of whom firmly believed that their specific path was the singular, exclusive truth.
Right, their way or the highway.
Exactly. And Vivekananda started with the famous words, "Sisters and Brothers of America," and thanked them in the name of what he called the mother of religions.
But his core message was something much more radical to a Victorian-era audience than mere religious tolerance.
Yes, he preached universal acceptance.
Which is a huge distinction.
It is. He explicitly stated that he was proud to belong to a religion that has taught the world not just to tolerate, but to accept all religions as true.
He quoted an ancient hymn to the crowd, right?
He did. He said, "As the different streams having their sources in different places all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee."
That is such a massive paradigm shift. I mean, tolerance implies a sort of grudging permission.
Like, I think you're entirely wrong and you might be doomed, but I'll tolerate your existence.
Exactly. But acceptance is a completely different ballgame. Acceptance says, your path is just as valid for you as mine is for me.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Vivekananda was identifying sectarianism, bigotry, and fanaticism as horrible demons that have historically drenched the earth in human blood.
His mission at that parliament was to ring the death knell of all fanaticism.
And all uncharitable feelings between people who are essentially wending their way to the exact same goal.
He was looking at thousands of years of human conflict over competing dogmas and saying, the root of this violence isn't God.
No, the root of this violence is our own limited perspective.
And to really drive that point home, he tells this brilliant, simple story at the parliament that we absolutely have to talk about.
Oh, the frog in the well.
Yes, it perfectly illustrates that limited perspective. So he says, imagine a frog who has lived its entire life in a little well.
Born there, brought up there.
Right, and every day it cleans the water of worms and bacilli. It gets sleek and fat in this little enclosed space. To this frog, the well is the entire universe.
There is nothing beyond the damp stone walls.
Then one day, another frog arrives, but this frog is from the sea. It somehow falls into the well.
And the well frog is just confused.
Yeah, it looks at this stranger and asks, where are you from? The sea frog says, I'm from the sea. The well frog, trying to comprehend this, asks, is it as big as my well?
And he takes a little leap from one side to the other.
Exactly. The sea frog laughs and asks how he can possibly compare the vast, boundless sea with this tiny well.
So the well frog takes another bigger leap and asks, is it this big?
Finally, the well frog gets angry and says, nothing can be bigger than my well. This fellow is a liar, so turn him out.
This raises an important question for all of us, looking at our own lives. What is our well?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because Vivekananda's profound insight from this story is that this is the exact psychological root of sectarianism and religious bigotry throughout human history.
He essentially said, I am a Hindu. I am sitting in my own little well and thinking that the whole world is my little well.
And the Christian sits in his little well and thinks the whole world is his well. The Mohammedan sits in his little well.
We all sit in our own constructed boundaries.
Yeah.
Mistaking our limited, culturally conditioned perception for the absolute totality of the universe.
And when someone comes along with a vision of the sea, our immediate reaction is exactly like the well frog, defensive anger.
We call them a liar because their truth threatens the boundaries of our comfortable little well.
It's basically a 19th century metaphor for algorithmic echo chambers.
Wow. Yeah, it really is. We surround ourselves with people who agree with us. We get sleek and fat on our own opinions. And the moment a piece of information from the sea of broader reality drops into our feed,
we reject it as fake news.
So how do we break out of the well? How do we actually experience the sea?
That is where the yogas come in.
Right. Before we dive deep into Bhakti, which is our main mission today, we really need to map out Vivekananda's 4 paths to realization.
This is crucial to give you, the listener, a complete picture of this philosophy, because he didn't believe one path was inherently superior for everyone.
He believed that a perfectly balanced character would actually have all 4 in harmony. So let's start with the first path, Karma Yoga, the path of the worker.
Karma Yoga addresses the inescapable fact that we all have to work in this world. We have jobs, we have families, we have societal obligations.
But here's the friction. Work usually comes with intense attachment and the heavy expectation of a reward.
We work for money, for fame, for recognition, or even just for a simple thank you.
The philosophy explains that the binding link of I and mine is constructed entirely in the mind.
Karma Yoga teaches us how to work for work's sake, completely unattached without caring who is helped or what the return will be.
If you do good to the world, you don't expect gratitude.
You recognize that you are only helping yourself in what Vivekananda beautifully calls the gymnasium of the world.
The gymnasium of the world, I love that.
The world doesn't actually need our help to function. The work we do is merely an exercise to strengthen our own spiritual muscles.
There's an analogy used to describe this mindset that I think is perfect. The lotus leaf in water.
Oh, yes.
Think about a lotus leaf resting on the surface of a pond. It sits in the water runs over it, but the leaf is incredibly water repellent.
The water cannot touch or adhere to its actual surface.
Karma Yoga says you can mix everywhere in the world, go where you please, involve yourself in massive projects, do as much work as you can.
But like that lotus leaf, you remain completely uncontaminated by the evils of attachment and selfishness.
You don't burn out, because burnout happens when the results don't match your expectations. If you have no expectations, you are perfectly free.
Precisely. And then we have the second path, Raja Yoga, the path of the mystic.
So if karma is for the active worker, Raja is for the person seeking mental and physical discipline.
It is essentially an empirical science of the mind. The goal of Raja Yoga is the complete restraint of the mind from taking various forms.
It involves 8 very specific methodical steps, right?
Yes. It starts with yama and niyama, which are ethical preparations like non-killing, truthfulness, and purity. You have to stabilize your moral life first.
Then comes asana, which is physical posture, and pranayama, the control of breath.
It moves all the way up through intense concentration to dhyana, which is meditation, and finally samadhi, superconsciousness.
So it's not just blind faith, it's practically a psychological laboratory.
Exactly. It treats the mind as an instrument that can be calibrated. The metaphor often used is calming a turbulent lake.
When the mental ocean is constantly agitated by thoughts and desires, you only see the choppy waves on the surface.
But the goal of Raja Yoga is to calm the surface of that lake so perfectly that it becomes like glass, allowing you to see all the way down into the very depths of your own soul.
Next is the third path, Jnana Yoga, the path of the philosopher.
This is for the intensely intellectual, analytical mind.
It is the path of realizing the absolute oneness of all existence through sheer rational discrimination.
The Jnana yogi looks at the world and realizes that the idea of the self as a separate, limited physical body is a total illusion.
They systematically strip away everything that is temporary, the body, the mind, the ego.
To grasp that one generalized abstract being, the idea is that by knowing this one generalized principle, you know everything.
They realize they are not the drop of water, they are the eternal ocean.
Which is an incredibly rigorous, sometimes isolating intellectual climb. It requires a tremendous amount of willpower to constantly deny the reality of the senses.
Which brings us finally to the fourth path, and the main focus of our deep dive today. Bhakti Yoga, the path of the lover.
For those who cannot pursue the strict physical disciplines of Raja, or the dizzying intellectual heights of Jnana, or who simply have a naturally emotional temperament.
Bhakti provides a very distinct, very powerful route.
Okay, so let's really get into this. What exactly is Bhakti? How does it differentiate itself fundamentally from the other 3 paths?
The text gives us a very clear, working definition. Bhakti Yoga is a real, genuine search after the Lord, a search beginning, continuing, and ending in love.
The ancient sage Narada defines it simply as intense love to God.
It asserts that one single moment of the madness of extreme love brings us eternal freedom.
But wait, aren't the other yogas also aiming for freedom?
They are, but what's fascinating here is how Bhakti fundamentally reframes the journey. According to its followers, Bhakti is considered greater than Karma Yoga or Raja Yoga. Why is that?
Because those other yogas are intended for an object in view. They are a means to an end. You practice physical postures, or you perform selfless works, or you analyze philosophical texts in order to attain liberation or enlightenment.
You are doing A to get B.
Right. But bhakti is its own fruition. It is its own means and its own end. There is absolutely no ulterior motive.
You don't love in order to get something. You love for the sheer, intoxicating sake of love itself.
The text points to Prahlada, celebrated as the king of bhaktas, who defines it as a deathless love.
He prays that the intense, almost obsessive love that ignorant people have for the fleeting objects of the senses, wealth, power, romantic partners, might simply be transferred into a constant meditation on the divine.
Without that love ever slipping from his heart.
And this highlights a brilliant psychological insight that I find so refreshing. Bhakti is presented as the most natural path because it doesn't ask you to destroy your fundamental human nature.
It doesn't ask you to stop being an emotional creature.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of global spiritual traditions, so many philosophical systems demand that we violently suppress our passions.
They view human emotion, desire, and love as dangerous obstacles that need to be crushed by a rigid intellect or starved out by extreme physical austerity.
It's a battle against the self.
But Bhakti Yoga says something entirely different. It acknowledges that passions and emotions are a deeply ingrained, inescapable part of our human hardware.
Instead of saying, give up your emotions, become a stone, it says, keep your intense emotions, just change their target.
It recognizes that we all have a natural, unquenchable thirst for the beautiful. The Bhakta simply takes that exact same thirst and directs it toward the ultimate, infinite beauty.
Yes. You don't have to rewire your brain to stop feeling. You just point your feelings in a different direction. It takes the energy of human longing and turns it into spiritual fuel.
There's an incredibly poetic story used to explain how a true bhakta focuses this love. It is the analogy of the pearl oyster.
Oh, this is a beautiful one. So, legend has it that the pearl oyster leaves its bed at the bottom of the sea and floats all the way up to the surface of the water.
It rests there with its shell wide open.
It isn't just taking in any water. It is waiting for a very specific astronomical alignment
It waits for the star Swati to be in the ascendant.
because it wants to catch a very specific drop of rain from that star. Once it finally succeeds in catching that single precious drop of rain, it snaps its shell shut.
Dives deep, deep down to the absolute bottom of the ocean bed and rests there in the dark, silent depths until it has fashioned that single drop of water into a beautiful, perfect pearl.
This analogy is absolutely vital for you, the listener, to understand the kind of discipline required in the early stages of bhakti.
We just said bhakti is about emotion, but it is not about chaotic, scattered emotion. The philosophy uses the story as a strict warning against what it brilliantly terms religious drink mania or intellectual opium eating.
Intellectual opium eating, that phrase hits so close to home.
It is a devastatingly accurate critique of the modern information age, isn't it?
Oh, completely. We see people feeding their idle curiosity with a continuous, endless succession of different ideas.
They hop from one exciting philosophy to another, from one self-help book to another, from one podcast to another, just to get a temporary nervous excitement.
It feels like learning, but it's really just entertainment. It's spiritual doom scrolling.
But true bhakti requires the immense patience and discipline of the pearl oyster. It requires you to take one ideal, one drop of genuine inspiration, snap your shell shut to the distractions of the world.
Dive deep into the quiet depths of your own soul and let it completely transform you.
You cannot be a spiritual tourist, snapping photos of different philosophies and moving on. You must be willing to sit in the dark and do the deep, patient, unseen work of fashioning the pearl.
So how do we actually start fashioning that pearl? Because if someone tells me to just sit quietly and cultivate intense, world-shattering love for the infinite, I wouldn't even know where to begin. It's too abstract.
This brings us to the structure of bhakti. The philosophy explains that bhakti is divided into two very distinct stages.
The first is called Gauni, which is the preparatory stage. Because you can't just leap straight into supreme, unattached, universal love. You need training wheels.
That is exactly right. Gauni Bhakti provides the necessary structure and scaffolding. It involves rituals, forms, ceremonies, mythology, and very specific rules of conduct.
Now, to the highly educated intellectual modern mind, these things might seem like dry details or empty habits or even silly superstitions.
Vivekananda argues they are absolutely essential for the progressive soul. The growing plant of spirituality is fragile. It must be hedged around and protected by these structures until it becomes a strong, unshakable tree.
And he actually has a very sharp warning for those who think they are too smart for rituals. He explicitly warns against the unworthy derisive smile of the rationalist who mocks people using forms, chanting mantras or lighting incense.
Yes, he says, do not look at people worshiping with flowers or kneeling before a statue and say they are fools.
He points out that the world's greatest spiritual giants, the individuals most wonderfully developed and profound spirituality, have almost all come up through the strict discipline of these rituals.
He uses a striking comparison. He likens the pure rationalist to a fool who, upon seeing a beautiful, deeply inspiring statue, wants to smash it into pieces just to scientifically analyze what material it is made of.
The rationalist misses the entire point of the art.
Emotional natures do not care for dry, abstract definitions of truth. God, to the beginning bhakta, must be something tangible, something they can feel, hear, see, and interact with.
The rituals are the tangible, physical expression of that budding love. Think of it like learning to play jazz. You don't just pick up a saxophone and start improvising brilliant melodies.
You have to spend years playing boring scales, practicing finger positions, learning the rigid rules of music theory.
Those scales are the rituals. Once you master them, they fall away, and the pure music remains.
That is a perfect analogy. But Gauni Bhakti isn't just about lighting incense and repeating chants. It has incredibly strict internal requirements.
The philosophy dives into the concept of viveka, which means discrimination, particularly regarding purity. And here's where it gets really specific and honestly kind of fascinating from a cultural perspective.
It outlines rules around food. It states that food becomes impure in three ways. First, by its natural properties like garlic or onions, which are thought to agitate the mind.
Second, by coming from wicked or accursed persons. The idea being that the energy of the person preparing the food transfers into it.
And third, from physical dirt, like dust or a hair in the food.
The underlying logic is that when the food is pure, The physical instrument of the brain is pure, and therefore the mind becomes pure and the memory unwavering.
But we have to look at the deeper psychological analysis here. While these external rules about food and physical washing are laid out, the philosophy explicitly states that these are merely stepping stones, and dangerous ones if misunderstood.
External purification is incredibly easy. Anyone can take a bath and avoid eating garlic.
But without internal cleanliness and purity, all these external observances are of absolutely zero value.
If you wash your body meticulously and follow every single dietary restriction to the letter, but your heart is full of deceit, vanity, or cruelty, you are entirely missing the point.
The external rules are meant to build a habit of mindfulness. The internal state is the actual goal.
The text lists the true internal purities: truthfulness, sincerity, doing good to others without expecting a single thing in return, and not brooding over vain or negative thoughts.
That perfectly transitions into the discussion on the true meaning of ahimsa, or non-injury.
And I have to say, the way this is framed really challenged my assumptions. The text essentially says, look, a cow or a sheep doesn't eat meat. They are strictly herbivorous.
Does that make them great yogis? Does that make them highly evolved spiritual beings practicing non-injury?
Of course not. Any fool can abstain from eating this or that. Merely restricting your diet doesn't make you any more spiritual than a grass-eating animal.
This is a devastating critique of performative piety, which we see so often in spiritual communities even today. People often equate strict dietary regimens with moral superiority.
But the philosophy creates a stark, uncompromising contrast. A man who eats only grass and vegetables, but mercilessly cheats widows and orphans, and does vile, ruthless deeds for money, is worse than a brute.
His diet means nothing. Conversely, a man whose heart cherishes no thought of injury to anyone, and who actually rejoices at the prosperity of his greatest enemy.
That man is a true perfected bhakta, even if he lives every day of his life eating the flesh of swine.
Ahimsa is not fundamentally about dietary habits. It is a profound, incredibly difficult psychological state.
Rejoicing at the prosperity of your greatest enemy, that is a staggeringly high bar.
It is, because true ahimsa is a total lack of jealousy and malice. As long as a single drop of jealousy exists in a human heart, that heart is miles away from the perfection of ahimsa.
It is about reaching an internal state where you cannot even conceive of hurting another being, physically, mentally, or emotionally.
And to maintain that kind of radical internal state, you need the next requirement, anavasada, which translates to strength and emotional equilibrium.
Because this kind of religion is not for the weak. You must be exceptionally strong to hold that posture of love in a harsh world.
But the philosophy gives a really interesting, slightly counterintuitive warning here. It warns against excessive mirth or hilarity.
Which is surprising, because wouldn't a deeply spiritual, loving person just be bouncing off the walls with joy all the time?
We might assume that, but it reflects a deep understanding of the human nervous system. The text says that while sadness, despair, and melancholy are strongly discouraged because they weaken the mind, excessive mirth is equally dangerous because it makes us unfit for serious thought.
It actually fritters away the energies of the mind in vain. Manic spikes.
If you are constantly chasing hilarious excitement or extreme emotional highs, you are yielding to the wild swing of the emotional pendulum rather than directing it.
The stronger the will, the less you yield to these extreme swings in either direction.
All profound religious realization requires a steady, peaceful condition of harmonious equilibrium. You need to be strong enough to hold your emotional center, a quiet, deep joy, rather than a frantic, exhausting hilarity.
So you've gone through the preparatory stage. You've practiced your rituals to build discipline. You've purified your inner motives. You've achieved the incredibly difficult state of ahimsa where malice is gone, and you hold a strong emotional equilibrium.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You cross the threshold from the preparatory stage into Para Bhakti, supreme devotion.
This is where the training wheels finally come off.
And the transition into Para Bhakti is beautifully described. In this supreme stage, the scaffolding is no longer needed.
Forms vanish, rigid rituals fly away, and even sacred books are superseded by direct experience.
All the little limitations, the strict dietary rules, the sectarian bondages, they simply fall off naturally.
The analogy used here is probably my favorite of the entire deep dive. It's the concept of the magnetic rock.
Oh, this is a great one.
Imagine a massive wooden ship sailing across the ocean. It's held together by heavy iron bolts and thick steel bars. All of a sudden, it sails near a colossal hidden magnetic rock. what happens?
The intense magnetic pull of that rock instantly draws out all the iron bolts and bars.
The ship doesn't explode. The planks simply loosen, the constraints are gone, and the pieces float freely on the open water.
The insight of this analogy is profound, especially when you compare it to other traditions. It completely redefines the nature of true renunciation.
In many philosophical systems, renunciation is framed as a violent, painful, agonizing struggle.
You have to forcefully tear yourself away from worldly pleasures, white-knuckling your way through life, suppressing your desires with incredible, exhausting willpower. You want the cake, but you force yourself not to eat it.
Which usually just makes you want the cake even more.
Exactly. But in supreme bhakti, divine grace acts like that magnetic rock. As your intense love for God grows, it naturally, effortlessly loosens the binding bolts and bars of the soul, the petty desires, the jealousies, the attachments.
You don't have to violently repress anything.
The philosophy points out a simple truth. No adult can enjoy a simple meal or a shiny toy with the exact same all-consuming gusto as a child or a dog.
As a human mind becomes more cultured and expansive, its obsessive pleasure in lower sensory experiences naturally decreases because it has discovered higher, more complex intellectual and emotional pleasures.
Similarly, when the blinding light of divine love shines in the heart, the love of lower sense pleasures is automatically cast into the shade.
Just as the light of the moon becomes dim and unnoticeable when the sun rises, your worldly attachments naturally fall away without any harshness, dryness, or struggle.
The lesser love is simply swallowed by the greater love.
It's effortless because it's driven by attraction to something greater, not restriction of something lesser. And this brings us to what Vivekananda calls the triangle of love.
To truly understand what this supreme devotion looks like in practice, we have to look at the three essential angles that make up this triangle of true love.
If any one of these angles is missing, the entire structure collapses. Angle 1 is love knows no bargaining.
This is a crucial diagnostic tool for our own spiritual lives. Wherever there is any seeking for something in return, there can be no real love. It is merely a transaction.
The text pulls no punches here, calling it a shopkeeping religion or a beggar's religion.
If you worship God because you want health, if you pray because you want wealth, or even if you worship God strictly because you want to be saved from the tortures of hell or granted an eternity of pleasure in heaven, you are bargaining.
You are treating the divine like a cosmic vending machine. You put in a prayer, you expect the blessing to pop out.
There's a brilliant story from the text to illustrate this dynamic. A great, powerful king goes hunting in a dense forest and stumbles upon a hermit sage.
The king sits with the sage and is so profoundly impressed by the man's wisdom and peace that he begs the sage to come back to his royal capital to receive a lavish gift.
The sage refuses, saying he is perfectly happy with the simple fruits of the forest and needs nothing.
But the king insists, practically pleading, so the sage finally agrees and goes to the grand palace. Before presenting the gift, the king asks the sage to wait a moment while he prays.
The sage listens as the king starts his prayer. Lord, give me more children, give me more wealth, give me more territory, give me victory over my enemies.
Hearing this, the sage quietly gets up and starts walking out of the palace. The king finishes his prayer, sees the sage leaving, and runs after him, asking why he is leaving without his gift.
The sage turns to the king and replies, I do not beg from beggars. You are yourself nothing but a beggar, constantly asking for more. How can you possibly give me anything?
It is a sharp rebuke to how most of the world practices religion. The true lover of God does not beg.
To worship, even for the sake of one's own salvation, is viewed as degenerate in the light of supreme bhakti. True love asks for nothing in return. Its position is always that of the giver, never the taker.
Which leads directly into angle 2 of the triangle. Love knows no fear.
The text paints a very vivid, relatable picture here. Imagine a frail, weak little woman walking down the street. She is naturally timid.
A dog barks aggressively at her, and she is so terrified she turns and flees into the nearest house. She is entirely dominated by the instinct of self-preservation and fear.
But imagine the very next day, that exact same frail woman is walking down the same street, but this time she has her beloved infant child at her breast.
Suddenly, a massive lion attacks. Where is that timid woman now?
She is standing right in the open mouth of the lion, willing to be torn to pieces to save her child.
That is the astonishing power of love, obliterating fear. When you are truly deeply in love, you cannot possibly fear the object of your love, nor can you feel fear when protecting it.
This is a direct challenge to the concept of God-fearing religions. If you fear God, if you view the divine as a wrathful punisher, a judge who will strike you down or cast you into fire for making a mistake, you cannot simultaneously love God.
Fear is fundamentally rooted in self-preservation, in the ego. Love is rooted in self-forgetfulness.
When you are willing to sacrifice yourself completely for the beloved, exactly as the mother does for the child, the very concept of fear ceases to exist.
And the final angle, angle 3, completes the triangle. Love is its own end.
You don't love God in order to get to a higher state of consciousness. Loving God is the highest state of consciousness.
Love is for love's sake alone. The philosophy gives a beautiful example. When you stand before a breathtaking mountain range or a stunning sunset, you don't demand a favor from the scenery. And the scenery certainly doesn't demand a favor from you.
But the sheer vision of that beauty brings you to a blissful state. True love is the highest recompense of love. The act of loving is the reward.
When these three angles, no bargaining, no fear, and love for love's sake are perfectly present, the Bhakta achieves something extraordinary: universal love.
And to grasp how this works, we need to understand two key philosophical concepts from the text: Samashti and Vyashti.
Right, let's define these clearly. Samashti is the universal whole, the generalized, absolute abstract. Vyashti is the particular, the individual, isolated thing.
The fundamental problem with normal human love is that we almost exclusively try to love the Vyashti. We love this specific person, then we try to love that specific person, then our family, maybe our community.
But the philosophy argues that you could spend an infinite amount of time trying to love people one by one, addressing every individual Vyashti, and you will never, ever succeed in loving the whole world.
Our capacity is too small. The world is too big. It's a mathematically impossible task.
However, God is the Samashti. God is the sum total of all the aspirations, all the energy, all the existence of the entire universe combined.
So the ultimate shortcut is this. If you love the Samashti, if you truly love God, you automatically inherently love the entire universe, because absolutely everything is a manifestation of that God.
Think of it like the internet. Trying to love the Vyashti is like trying to understand the internet by printing out one single web page at a time and reading it. You'll never finish.
But loving the Samashti is like grasping the underlying code that generates the entire web. Once you love the code, you appreciate every page it builds.
The text says that to the perfected Bhakta, all the little differences and boundaries between things are lost. A man is seen no more as a man, but as God. An animal is seen no more as an animal, but as God.
It even uses a startling extreme. The tiger is no more a terrifying tiger, but a manifestation of God. When you love the whole, you inherently love every single part of it.
And this realization leads to the absolute, breathtaking pinnacle of Bhakti Yoga, complete and total self-surrender, a state known as apratikulya.
When you truly love the entire universe as the living body of your beloved, you completely stop fighting against it. You achieve a state of uncomplaining resignation to the will of God.
Now, I have to push back here because this is a terrifying concept to the modern mind.
It is challenging.
The text says the true Bhakta welcomes everything equally. If pain comes, they say welcome pain. If misery comes, welcome misery. Even if a deadly serpent comes, they say welcome serpent. You are also a messenger from the beloved.
They truly live the phrase, thy will be done.
But practically speaking, how is that not just pure self-destructive fatalism? If a venomous snake is attacking me, my basic human instinct is to run away or defend myself, not to roll out the red carpet and say welcome.
Oh.
How does Vivekananda square that circle? Is he telling people to just let themselves be killed?
It's a vital question. He is not advocating for mindless suicide or ignoring practical reality. What he is describing is the loss of what he calls the demon of the worship of the body.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Most of us operate under the delusion that we are our physical bodies, and our entire lives are entirely focused on preserving, protecting, and pleasing this physical vessel. We fight tooth and nail against aging, pain, and death.
Sure, survival instinct.
But the perfected Bhakta, having realized the Samashti, knows they are not this temporary body, they are the eternal spirit. Therefore, if their body gets sick, or if it is destroyed in the service of others, or if it meets its natural end via a serpent, they do not experience the paralyzing psychological terror that we do.
They take their body, place it metaphorically at the feet of the Lord, and say, I have nothing, I want nothing for myself. This body is yours to use.
It is an internal state of non-resistance to the universe's flow. They might step out of the way of the snake practically, but internally they do not curse the snake or rage against the unfairness of the universe.
This eternal sacrifice of the self-ego is considered higher than all wealth, power, or renown. It brings a peace that passes all human understanding.
So we have climbed to this incredibly lofty, almost dizzying height of abstract, universal, fearless love.
And looking at it from down here, we have to ask, how on earth can a regular, flawed human being possibly relate to this infinite, abstract, formless concept of love?
It seems entirely impossible for the human brain to grasp a love that welcomes serpents and demands nothing.
And that is exactly why the Bhaktas use human representations of the divine.
The philosophy acknowledges that we can only understand the infinite through the limited lens of our own human experiences. We cannot conceptualize abstract infinity, but we can conceptualize a father, a friend, or a lover.
So Bhakti Yoga outlines progressive stages of relationship that a devotee can cultivate with God, moving slowly from a state of awe and distance toward intense, intimate closeness.
Let's walk through these stages. The first stage is viewing God as the father or the mother.
This is very common in many of the world's major religions. You recognize God as the grand creator, the ultimate protector, the source of all authority, discipline, and care. It's a relationship defined by deep reverence.
But reverence, by its very nature, maintains a distance. You revere what is above you, what is greater than you. There is still a hierarchy.
So the Bhakta eventually moves to the next stage, which is viewing God as the friend.
Think about your relationship with your absolute best friend. There is no hierarchy. There is no fear between true friends. You are equals.
You can open your heart completely, confess your flaws, and share jokes without the barrier of majestic awe. The Bhakta begins to approach the divine not as a distant, thundering ruler on a throne, but as a constant, intimate, walking companion.
Then comes a stage that I found quite radical, especially when viewed through the lens of traditional Western religious thought, Vatsalya, which translates to worshiping God as the child.
Instead of looking up to an almighty, all-powerful ruler, the Bhakta looks down, in a sense, at a vulnerable, dependent infant.
The psychology embedded here is absolutely brilliant. Think about the nature of a parent's love for a newborn child.
When a mother wakes up at 3 a.m. to feed a crying baby, there is absolutely no awe, there is no fear, and crucially, there is no expectation of a return favor.
A baby cannot grant you wealth, a baby cannot defeat your enemies, and a baby cannot grant you salvation. You love the child simply and purely to protect and nurture it.
By worshiping God as the child, the Bhakta completely and permanently strips away the last remnants of the beggar's religion.
You can't ask an infant for a kingdom. It leaves only pure, protective, entirely unselfish love.
Which prepares the heart for the final, highest human representation. God is the beloved.
This is the intense, all-consuming passion you see in romantic love, but it is directed entirely toward the divine.
It takes the absolute madness of human infatuation, that obsessive state where you can't eat, you can't sleep, and you can't think of anything but your lover, and points that laser focus directly at God.
But the text is very careful to clarify a crucial point. This love is completely stripped of physical, worldly, or sexual limitations. It recognizes the Ancient One residing within.
The text states a profound psychological truth. None ever loved the husband for the husband's sake, but for the self that is in the husband.
Meaning, even in human romance, we are subconsciously drawn to the divine spark within the other person.
The Bhakta realizes this, bypasses the physical middleman, takes that intense, poetic, romantic devotion, and gives it directly to the true self, the infinite God.
This results in a state of supreme divine ecstasy where the illusion of separation vanishes and the lover and the beloved completely merge into one.
This has been an absolutely staggering journey through this philosophy. We've gone from the strict preparatory rules of Gauni Bhakti, worrying about the purity of our food and the discipline of our rituals, to the natural, effortless falling away of all our selfish desires as the magnetic rock of divine love pulls us in.
We've climbed it past the shopkeeping religion, past the fear of punishment, to the dizzying heights of universal love, where we realize that loving the whole means loving every single part.
So listener, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to reflect on your own life. What is your well? Where are you acting like the angry frog, unable to see the vast ocean outside your own limited, comfortable perspective?
And where might you be practicing a shopkeeping religion in your daily life?
Are your good deeds, your charity, or your spiritual practices just a hidden transaction where you expect health, wealth, or peace of mind in return?
To build on that reflection, I want to leave you with one final, beautifully lingering concept from the text that we haven't explicitly touched on yet. The idea of becoming God's playmate.
Becoming God's playmate.
The philosophy suggests that if you can view the entire universe, The awe-inspiring creation of suns and moons, the chaotic friction of human society, and even the painful struggles in your own heart as a grand divine game, it changes your entire reality.
God puts the chessmen on the board and shakes them up. We are his chessmen.
If you can realize that you are not a victim of circumstance, but that you are simply playing a grand cosmic game with the beloved, how would that transform the miseries, the anxieties, and the heavy burdens of your daily life?
You are no longer struggling against a cold universe. You are a conscious, joyful participant in the divine play.
What a profound thought to end on. You are playing with the beloved.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly deep dive into the philosophy of Bhakti Yoga. Remember, if you found value in this deep exploration of Swami Vivekananda's work, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with others on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. Your support is exactly what allows us to keep bringing you these in-depth, comprehensive explorations of the world's greatest works. Until next time, keep diving deep.